The thing about teaching piano to mob bosses' kids is that nobody tells you up front. They don't put it in the job description. Piano instructor wanted, must be comfortable with armed bodyguards in waiting room. But here I was, 6 months into teaching at Eastside Music Academy, watching a 7-year-old girl with perfect pitch and her father's cold eyes murder Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. No, Juliana, I said gently, reaching over to still her small hands on the keys. Remember what we talked about? The notes should whisper to each other, not shout. She looked up at me with those unsettling gray eyes, too knowing for a second grader, and played the passage again. This time, perfectly. Hauntingly so. The kind of perfect that made my spine tingle because children shouldn't be able to channel that much controlled emotion. Better, she asked, her voice carrying the faint accent her father had probably spent millions trying to erase from his own speech. Much better. You're really talented, you know that? She shrugged, already gathering her sheet music with the methodical precision of someone twice her age. Papa says talent without discipline is just noise. I smiled, though something about the phrase made my stomach tighten. Everything about the Marchese family made my stomach tighten. But I needed this job. My studio apartment in Queens didn't pay for itself, and neither did my mother's medical bills. So I smiled at the daughter of Marco Marchesi, a man whose name appeared in news articles with words like alleged and investigation and organized crime. And I pretended not to notice the bulge under the jacket of the man who waited outside my teaching studio. Your papa sounds like a smart man, I said, which was the safest response I could manage. Juliana's face lit up in a way that transformed her from eerily mature to genuinely childlike. He is. He knows everything about everything. He speaks 6 languages and he can do math in his head really fast and he... She stopped abruptly, her expression shuddering like someone had thrown a switch. I'm not supposed to talk about Papa. The sudden shift sent a chill through me. That's okay, sweetheart. How about next week we start working on that Debussy piece you liked? She nodded, already heading toward the door where her bodyguard, or handler, or whatever the hell he was, waited. I watched her small form disappear down the hallway, her pink backpack bouncing against her shoulders, looking like any other kid except for the 6-foot wall of muscle trailing 3 steps behind. I exhaled slowly and began gathering my own materials. Tuesday afternoons were always the longest. After Juliana came 3 more students, then a staff meeting, then the subway ride home where I'd inevitably fall asleep against the window and wake up with a crick in my neck. 31 years old, and my life had become a monotonous cycle of scales, arpeggios, and trying to remember which parent wanted their kid to focus on classical versus contemporary. But at least it was predictable, safe, boring. I had no idea how much I'd miss boring. The text came through at 9:47 p.m., just as I was microwaving leftover pad thai and debating whether to grade papers or pretend I was the kind of person who had a social life on a Tuesday night. Need to move Juliana's lesson to Thursday. Same time, private location, address to follow. I stared at the message from the number saved in my phone as G. Marchesi, parent. This was unusual. In 6 months of teaching Juliana, every single lesson had been at the academy. Same room, same time, like clockwork. The Marchesi family appreciated routine. Or maybe they appreciated the security of a public location with multiple exits and witnesses. My thumb hovered over the reply button. Every instinct I had screamed to decline politely. Make up an excuse. But those instincts didn't understand the reality of my bank account or the increasingly aggressive voicemails from the billing department at Mount Sinai Hospital. No problem. See you Thursday. The address came through 3 minutes later. 1247 Riverside Drive, apartment 12C. I Googled it immediately, which was probably naive. Like the address would come up with a Yelp review reading, Great organized crime headquarters, 5 stars, very threatening ambiance. Instead, I found a luxury high-rise in Upper Manhattan with a doorman and river views and apartments that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. Maybe this was legitimate. Maybe Mrs. Marchese wanted her daughter to practice on their home piano. Maybe I was paranoid because I'd watched too many crime documentaries. I ate my pad thai, graded exactly 0 papers, and went to bed telling myself everything was fine. Thursday arrived wrapped in the kind of humid June heat that makes New York City smell like hot garbage and broken dreams. I dressed in what I hoped was appropriate home lesson attire, professional but not formal, a navy blue dress with sleeves and sensible flats, and packed my teaching bag with Juliana's usual materials plus a few extra pieces in case we had more time. The subway was delayed naturally, so I arrived at the Riverside Drive building 15 minutes late and sweating through my dress. The doorman, an older man with kind eyes and the posture of someone who'd seen everything, barely glanced at his computer when I gave my name. 12C elevators are to your right. Mrs. Marchese is expecting you. The elevator was the kind with mirrors on all sides, forcing me to confront my frizzy hair and shiny forehead from every angle as we ascended. I tried to fix both with limited success. The doors opened onto a hallway with exactly 2 apartments. 12C's door was already open. A woman stood in the doorway, petite, immaculately dressed in cream-colored silk, her dark hair swept into a chignon that probably cost more than my entire outfit. This was not Mrs. Marchese. I'd met Juliana's mother exactly once, a tired-looking woman with nervous hands who'd signed the enrollment forms and barely made eye contact. Miss Chen? The woman's accent was refined. European, maybe Italian. I'm Bianca. Please come in. I stepped into an apartment that could have been featured in Architectural Digest. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. The furniture was modern but warm. All clean lines and expensive fabrics. Fresh flowers, actual fresh flowers, not bodega roses, sat in crystal vases on surfaces that gleamed. Juliana is just finishing her snack, Bianca said, leading me through the open-concept living space toward what I assumed was a music room. Mr. Marchese wanted to ensure you had everything you might need. The piano is a Steinway Model D. If the bench height needs adjustment, please let me know. A Steinway Model D. I tried not to let my jaw drop. That was a concert grand, the kind of piano I'd dreamed about playing in conservatory. The kind of piano that cost more than most people's houses. The music room was smaller than I expected. Intimate, with acoustic panels on the walls and that same stunning river view. The piano sat in the center like a black silk sculpture. Its surface so perfectly polished I could see my reflection. I struggled for words. This is extraordinary. Mr. Marchese believes in providing the best for his daughter's education. Bianca's smile was pleasant and completely empty of warmth. He may stop by during the lesson. I wanted to prepare you. He likes to observe Juliana's progress. My mouth went dry. Of course. That's fine. It was not fine. I had successfully avoided meeting Marco Marchese for 6 months, and I'd planned to continue that streak indefinitely. But Bianca was already gliding out of the room, leaving me alone with the most beautiful piano I'd ever seen and a growing sense of dread. Juliana appeared moments later, looking small in the doorway of the vast room. She wore a yellow dress with white trim, her dark hair in 2 braids. She looked like a normal little girl, except for the way her eyes scanned the room before she entered. Quick, efficient, checking corners. Hi, Miss Chen. Her voice was bright, but I caught the tension in her shoulders. Do you like our piano? I love it, I said honestly, settling onto the bench. Should we warm up with scales? We fell into our normal routine. C major, A minor, arpeggios, and finger exercises. Juliana was focused today, more than usual. She made it through the Debussy piece with only 2 mistakes, both of which she corrected before I could comment. Beautiful, I told her. Your dynamics are really improving. Should we try? The door opened. I felt him before I saw him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop despite the summer heat. Juliana's hands froze on the keys, her back straightening with military precision. Marco Marchesi was not what I expected. Somehow, I'd pictured someone older, more obviously threatening. Instead, the man who entered was maybe 40, tall and lean in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was touched with gray at the temples. His face was handsome in a way that probably made people trust him right before he destroyed them. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. The same gray as Juliana's, but colder, calculating. The eyes of a man who measured everyone and everything for potential use or threat. Papa! Juliana's voice held genuine warmth, but she didn't move from the piano bench, waiting for permission. Principessa? His voice was surprisingly soft. He crossed the room with the fluid grace of a predator, kissing the top of his daughter's head. Then those gray eyes turned to me. Miss Chen, thank you for accommodating the change in location. I stood, which felt both necessary and stupid. Of course, it's no trouble at all. Please, sit. Continue the lesson. I simply wanted to observe. He moved to an armchair in the corner, settling into it like a king on a throne. Pretend I'm not here. Pretend he wasn't there. Right. Pretend the most dangerous man I'd ever been in a room with wasn't watching my every move. Easy. I sat back down, my hands trembling slightly as I opened Juliana's book to the next piece. Okay, sweetheart. Let's look at this Mozart sonata. The next 30 minutes were the longest of my life. I could feel Marco Marchesi's presence like a weight on my back. Every word I said felt scrutinized. Every correction I made to Juliana's playing felt like it might be the wrong one, the one that would offend him, that would make those cold eyes turn even colder. But Juliana played beautifully, and I fell into the rhythm of teaching despite my fear. Music had always been my refuge, the one place where I felt competent and in control. Even here, with a crime lord watching from the shadows, I could lose myself in the mathematics of rhythm and the poetry of melody. Excellent work, I said as Juliana finished the piece. Really, really excellent. You've been practicing. Every day, she said proudly, glancing at her father, just like Papa said. Discipline, Marco said from his corner, and I jumped slightly at his voice. I'd almost managed to forget he was there. Almost. Discipline is the foundation of all excellence, is it not, Miss Chen? I turned to face him, my heart hammering. Yes, absolutely. Juliana has shown remarkable dedication. He stood, moving toward us with that same unsettling grace. Up close, I could see the details: the expensive watch, the subtle cologne, the small scar above his left eyebrow. He placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Juliana, why don't you go find Bianca? I believe she has gelato for you. The girl's face lit up, but she looked to me first. Is the lesson over, Miss Chen? Yes, I managed. You did wonderfully today. She slipped off the bench and out of the room, leaving me alone with her father. Every muscle in my body tensed. This was the moment where he'd threaten me or pay me off, or do whatever it was that men like him did to ensure silence and compliance. Instead, he sat down on the piano bench where his daughter had been moments before. His fingers touched the keys gently, almost reverently. Do you play, Mr. Marchesi? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Not well. My mother tried to teach me when I was young, but I lacked Juliana's patience. He played a simple melody, something classical I couldn't quite place. She would have loved knowing her granddaughter inherited her gift. The past tense hung in the air. Would have loved. I didn't ask. Juliana is very talented, I said carefully. She has natural ability, but more importantly, she has the work ethic to develop it. She gets that from her mother. He stopped playing, his hands resting on the keys. Miss Chen, I wanted to speak with you privately. That's why I asked you here today. Here it comes, I thought. Whatever threat or proposition or test this was. Juliana speaks very highly of you, he continued. She looks forward to your lessons. In 6 months, you are the only teacher she has not asked to replace. I blinked. I'm glad she enjoys the lessons. More than that, you treat her like a person, not a commodity. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Not everyone does that. I had no idea what to say to that. The silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant sounds of the city through the windows. I would like to increase her lessons, he said finally. 3 times per week instead of once. Here, in this apartment. I will triple your rate. Triple. My mind raced through the mathematics. That would cover my mother's medications with enough left over to actually save something. Maybe even enough to pay down my loans faster. I would also require your discretion, he continued, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made me want to look away. But I didn't. Couldn't. You do not discuss what you see here, what you hear here, or who you meet here. With anyone. For any reason. And there it was. The catch. The price of those tripled rates. I understand, I heard myself say. Do you? He leaned forward slightly. I don't think you do, Miss Chen. Let me be very clear. My daughter's safety is my primary concern. Always. If I believe for one moment that you pose a threat to that safety, or that your presence in her life creates vulnerability. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But I was also exhausted from 5 years of choosing between my mother's health and my own survival. I was tired of eating ramen and wearing the same 3 professional outfits on rotation. I was so goddamn tired of being afraid of my bank balance. I understand completely, Mr. Marchese, I said, and I meant it. Juliana's well-being is my only concern when I'm teaching her. I have no interest in anything else that happens in your life or your home. I just want to help your daughter become the best pianist she can be. He studied me for a long moment, those gray eyes seeming to peel back layers of skin and bone to see what lay beneath. Then, finally, he nodded. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 4 p.m. Bianca will text you if anything changes. He stood, pulling a business card from his jacket pocket and setting it on the piano. That has a number where you can reach me directly if needed. Only use it in case of emergency regarding Juliana. I picked up the card. Heavy stock, minimal design. Just a phone number. No name. Of course. Thank you for the opportunity, I managed. Thank you for caring about my daughter. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Miss Chen. You did the right thing today. Agreeing to come here, accepting these terms. It shows good judgment. Continue to show good judgment. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the music room with my racing heart and the most beautiful piano I'd ever played, and the growing certainty that I'd just stepped into something far more complex and dangerous than piano lessons. I should have told someone. My best friend Laura, maybe, or my mother. I should have documented everything, kept records, protected myself somehow. Instead, I did what I'd become expert at doing. I compartmentalized. Piano lessons were piano lessons. Whatever else Marco Marchesi was involved in was none of my business. That's what I told myself as I took the subway home, the business card burning a hole in my purse. That's what I told myself when I deposited the check Bianca had handed me on my way out. Enough for the first month of tripled lessons, paid in advance. That's what I told myself when Laura called that night and asked how my day was, and I said, fine, same as always. I became very good at lying to myself. The first month passed without incident. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at 4 p.m. I arrived at the Riverside Drive apartment. Bianca let me in. I taught Juliana for an hour, and I left. Sometimes Marco appeared, sitting in his corner like a silent sentinel. Sometimes he didn't. Juliana continued to improve rapidly, her natural talent blossoming under consistent instruction. It was almost normal, almost boring. Then came the Thursday in late July when everything changed. I arrived at 3:55 p.m., punctual as always. The doorman waved me through without comment. The elevator rose smoothly to the 12th floor, but when the doors opened, something felt wrong. The hallway was too quiet. No sounds of cooking or conversation or life leaked from beneath the doors. Apartment 12C's door was closed, which was unusual. Bianca always had it open before I arrived. I knocked, waited, heard nothing. Knocked again, louder. Hello? It's Lily Chen. I'm here for Juliana's lesson. Silence. I pulled out my phone, checking for messages. Nothing. No cancellation. No change of plans. I tried the door handle, locked. My unease deepened. Should I call that emergency number Marco had given me? But this wasn't an emergency. Probably just a scheduling mix-up. Probably nothing. I was turning toward the elevator when I heard it. A small sound from inside the apartment. A thump, like something falling. Then another sound, higher pitched. Almost like a whimper. My hand was on my phone. Marco's number pulled up when the elevator dinged behind me. The doors opened. 3 men stepped out. Large men, dressed in black. Moving with purpose. The kind of purpose that made my blood run cold. They saw me immediately. One of them, bald with a scar across his cheek, smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Well, well, he said, his accent thick and Eastern European. Looks like we got bonus. I ran. Not toward the elevator, they blocked that path. Instead, I bolted for the stairwell door at the opposite end of the hall, my teaching bag bouncing against my hip. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Heavy. Fast. The stairwell door flew open under my shoulder. I plunged through, already reaching for the railing, ready to throw myself down the stairs. But I only made it 2 steps before a hand grabbed my bag, yanking me backward. I let the bag go, let it slide off my shoulder, and kept running. Down 1 flight, 2, my flat slapping against concrete. The men were right behind me. I could hear their breathing, could hear one of them saying something in a language I didn't understand. 11th floor, 10th floor, 9th. My lungs burned, my legs screamed. I had no plan beyond down, away, escape. On the 8th floor, another door flew open. A man stepped into the stairwell, briefcase in hand, eyes widening as he saw me running full tilt toward him with 3 large men in pursuit. "Call the police!" I gasped as I passed him. "Call—" The sound of a gunshot cut through the air, not loud like in movies, more of a crack, sharp and final. The businessman behind me made a sound, surprised, pained, and then I heard something heavy hitting the floor. They'd shot him. They'd actually shot him. Terror gave me a burst of speed I didn't know I possessed. 7th floor, 6th, 5th. My mind raced ahead, calculating. If I made it to the lobby, what then? Would they shoot me in front of witnesses? Or would they simply take me, confident that no one would interfere? 4th floor. I could see the exit door looming below, the one that would take me to the main floor. So close. Almost there. A hand caught my hair. Pain exploded across my scalp as I was yanked backward, my feet leaving the stairs. I hit the landing hard, my head cracking against the concrete. Stars burst behind my eyes. Strong hands grabbed my arms, hauling me upright. "Not so fast, little bird," the scarred man said, his face inches from mine. His breath smelled like cigarettes and something sour. "Boss wants to talk to you." "I don't know anything," I gasped. "I'm just a piano teacher. I teach a little girl piano. That's all. I don't know anything." "Piano teacher?" Another man, shorter but broader, laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Sure. And I'm ballet dancer." They started dragging me back up the stairs. I fought, thrashing and kicking, but it was like fighting stone. These men were professionals. They handled my resistance with the casual efficiency of people who did this often. We made it back to the 12th floor. My heart sank as the scarred man pulled open the stairwell door, revealing the hallway I'd fled from minutes before. The door to 12C stood open now, darkness visible beyond. "Please," I tried one more time. "I don't know anything about Marco Marchesi. I just teach his daughter piano. I'm nobody. I'm not—" The scarred man's hand clamped over my mouth, cutting off my words. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow terrified me more than his earlier aggression. "Marchesi? Who said anything about Marchesi?" He shoved me through the apartment door. The interior was dark, curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. As my eyes adjusted, I could make out shapes. Furniture overturned, papers scattered across the floor. Signs of a struggle. My teaching bag lay near the entrance where they must have dropped it after catching me. "In here," someone called from deeper in the apartment. They dragged me through the living room, past the kitchen where broken glass glittered on the tile, toward what I remembered was Marco's study. The door stood open. Light spilled out, harsh and fluorescent. Inside, 2 more men stood over a desk that had been pulled away from the wall. The safe behind it hung open, empty. "This her?" asked one of the men at the desk. He was older, gray-haired, wearing an expensive suit that seemed at odds with the violence of the scene. "Found her in the hall," Scarface confirmed. "Says she's piano teacher." Gray hair approached me, tilting his head like I was a curious specimen. Piano teacher. In Marco Marchesi's private apartment, on a Thursday afternoon. He smiled, and I suddenly understood that this man was far more dangerous than the thugs holding me. "Do you think I'm stupid, girl?" "I am a piano teacher," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I teach his daughter, Juliana. She's 7 years old. She plays Chopin and Mozart and—" "Where is she?" Gray hair interrupted. "The girl. Where is Marchesi's daughter?" "I don't know. I came here for her lesson and no one answered the door and I heard a sound and then these men came out of the elevator and—" "Shut up!" He held up a hand, silencing me. Then, to the men holding me, "Search her." Hands patted me down roughly, efficiently. They found my phone first, tossing it to Gray hair. Then my wallet, my keys, my Metro card, the mundane artifacts of my mundane life, now evidence in whatever this was. Gray hair scrolled through my phone, his expression unreadable. Lots of messages about lessons, schedule confirmations, nothing else. He looked up at me. "You're very careful. Or you're very stupid." "I'm just a piano teacher," I repeated, because it was the only truth I had. "Maybe." He pocketed my phone. "Or maybe you're how we get Marchesi to talk. Either way, you're coming with us." "Wait," I started to say, but the scarred man pulled a strip of cloth from his pocket, already moving to gag me. That's when I heard it. A small sound from somewhere in the apartment. So quiet I almost missed it. A tiny, stifled cough. The men heard it too. Everyone froze. "Check the rooms," Gray hair ordered quietly. "All of them. She's here somewhere." No, 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 no. Juliana was here. Hiding. and these men were going to find her. "There's no one here," I said quickly, loudly, trying to cover any sound. "The apartment was empty when I arrived. I already told you." The scarred man backhanded me, and my head snapped to the side. I tasted blood. "Search," Gray Hair repeated, his voice colder now. The men dispersed, moving through the apartment with practiced efficiency. I heard doors opening, closets being checked, furniture being moved. My mind raced. Where was Bianca? Where were Marco's guards? How had these men gotten in? And where the hell was Juliana? Minutes passed. I stood in the study with gray hair and one guard, blood trickling from my split lip, listening to the sounds of search and destruction. They were tearing the place apart. "Nothing in the bedrooms?" someone called. "Bathroom's clear," another voice. "Kitchen's empty." Gray Hair's jaw tightened. He turned to me, grabbing my face roughly, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Where is she?" "I don't know," I said, and it was the absolute truth. "I swear to God, I don't know." He stared at me for a long moment, searching for the lie. Then he shoved me away, pulling out his phone. "We have a problem," he said to whoever answered. "The girl isn't here. Neither is—" He paused, listening. "Understood. We'll take the teacher. If Marchese wants her back, he'll—" The apartment door slammed open with such force that the wall shook. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. I felt it physically, like someone had opened a door to the Arctic. Marco Marchese stood in the doorway. He was no longer the cultured man who sat in the corner during piano lessons. This was something else entirely. Something primal and terrifying. His suit jacket was gone, his white shirt stained with something dark. Blood, I realized distantly. His gray eyes blazed with a fury that made the men around me actually step backward. "Volkov," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "You made a mistake." Gray Hair, Volkov, apparently, raised his gun, pointing it at Marco. "Only mistake was not killing you when I had the chance in Brighton Beach. You're in my home." Marco took a step forward, seemingly unconcerned about the gun. "You put your hands on my daughter's teacher, you—" "We don't have your daughter," Volkov interrupted. "Yet. But we have your whore here, so I'd suggest—" Marco moved. I've never seen anyone move that fast. One moment he was standing in the doorway. The next, he had Volkov's gun hand in his grip, twisting it backward with a crack that made my stomach turn. The gun clattered to the floor. Then chaos erupted. The scarred man lunged at Marco, but another figure appeared behind him. A tall man with dark skin and cold eyes who caught Scarface by the throat and threw him against the wall like he weighed nothing. More of Marco's men poured into the apartment, and suddenly the room was full of violence. I dropped to my knees, covering my head, making myself as small as possible. Around me, men fought and grunted and crashed into furniture. I heard more gunshots, too close, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Someone grabbed my arm. I screamed, trying to pull away. "Miss Chen," a woman's voice, urgent but calm. "Bianca. Come with me, now." She pulled me toward the door, navigating the chaos with impossible grace. We made it to the hallway, then the stairwell. Behind us, the sounds of fighting continued. "Juliana," I gasped as we descended the stairs. "Where's Juliana?" "Safe," Bianca said. "She's safe. That's all that matters." We emerged in the building's parking garage. A black sedan waited, engine running. Bianca opened the back door and practically shoved me inside before sliding in beside me. The car was moving before the door even closed. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Bianca handed me a bottle of water, which I accepted with trembling hands. "Drink," she ordered, slowly. I obeyed, the cold water stinging my split lip. What was that? Who were those men? Russian, Bianca said, as if that explained everything. They've been trying to move in on Mr. Marchesi's territory for months. Today, they made their play. They were looking for Juliana. Yes. Where is she? Bianca's expression softened slightly. Under the circumstances, Miss Chen, you've more than earned an answer to that question. But I need you to understand something first. What you did back there, not giving up her location even when you were hurt and scared, that means something to Mr. Marchesi. It means something to all of us. I didn't do anything, I protested. I didn't know where she was. But you would have protected that information if you had known. I could see it in your eyes. You were prepared to be hurt to keep her safe. Bianca squeezed my hand briefly. Not many people would do that for a child who isn't theirs. I didn't know what to say to that. The adrenaline was starting to fade, leaving me hollow and shaky. The car pulled up to another building, older, less ostentatious than the Riverside Drive location. Bianca led me through a service entrance and up an elevator that required a key to operate. We exited into a penthouse apartment that was all warm wood and soft lighting. Miss Chen, Juliana launched herself at me before I could process what was happening. Her small arms wrapped around my waist, and I felt her trembling against me. Hey, sweetheart, I managed, kneeling so I could hug her properly. Are you okay? I heard loud noises, she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. Bianca said we had to go right away. She said you were coming, but I didn't know if... She pulled back, her gray eyes, so like her father's, bright with unshed tears. Your lip is bleeding. It's okay. Just a little accident. I touched the cut gingerly. I'm fine. You're bleeding because of me. No, I said firmly, gripping her shoulders. I'm bleeding because some bad men did a bad thing. That's not your fault. None of this is your fault. She studied my face, then nodded slowly. Behind us, Bianca was speaking quietly on her phone. I caught fragments. Secure, en route. Medical. Juliana, I said carefully. Where were you? In the apartment? Where were you hiding? Her expression turned almost impish, a flash of childish pride breaking through the fear. Papa showed me a special place, under the table in the music room. There's a panel that comes away and a little space behind the wall. He said if anything ever felt wrong, I should hide there and be very, very quiet. So I did. Under the table in the music room, the piano room, my piano room, for all intents and purposes. She'd been there the whole time. That was very smart, I told her, and very brave. Papa says being smart is more important than being brave. Before I could respond, the apartment door opened again. Marco Marchesi strode in, and despite everything I'd just been through, I felt a fresh wave of fear at the sight of him. His shirt was more blood than white now. His knuckles were scraped and raw, but his eyes found his daughter immediately, and something in his expression cracked. Principessa. Juliana ran to him, and he scooped her up with a gentleness that seemed impossible from the man I'd seen fighting minutes before. He held her close, whispering something in Italian that made her nod against his shoulder. Then those gray eyes found me, still kneeling on the floor where Juliana had left me. Miss Chen. He set his daughter down, pressing a kiss to her forehead before gently steering her toward Bianca. Take her to the bedroom. Find something to occupy her. Once we were alone, he approached me slowly, like I might bolt. Maybe I should have. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to run, to get as far away from Marco Marchesi and his world as possible. Instead, I stayed on my knees, looking up at him, waiting. He crouched before me, bringing himself to my level. Up close, I could see new bruises forming on his jaw, a cut above his eye that was still bleeding sluggishly. But his hands were gentle as he tilted my face toward the light, examining my split lip. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You should never have been put in that position. Is it over? I asked. Those men are no longer a concern. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. What happens now? The question came out smaller than I intended. Am I? You're in danger, he said bluntly. Volkov's people saw you. They know you have access to my daughter. They'll use that knowledge if they can. My heart sank. So I can't teach Juliana anymore. That's not what I said. His hand dropped from my face, and he stood, offering his hand to help me up. I took it, my legs unsteady beneath me. But you can't go back to your life as it was. Your apartment isn't safe. The academy isn't safe. As of this moment, everything changes. Changes how? He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those calculating eyes. Then, how attached are you to queens? 3 months in Marco Marchese's world taught me that safety was an illusion and loyalty was currency. The penthouse became my prison and sanctuary. Bianca brought my mother's medications. Marco's lawyers handled my disappearance. A family emergency, they told the academy. My apartment was emptied overnight, my possessions appearing in the guest room like magic. Juliana bloomed under daily lessons. Her Chopin was transcendent now, each note carrying the weight of everything we'd survived. She never asked why I lived there. Children of that world learned not to ask questions. Marco watched our lessons religiously, that corner chair his throne. Sometimes I caught him staring, not at his daughter, but at me, calculating something I couldn't decipher. You're different than I expected, he said one evening after Juliana went to bed. We were alone in the music room, the city glittering below. How so? You haven't asked to leave. I studied the Steinway's keys, each one a portal to the only freedom I had left. Where would I go? You said it yourself. I'm in danger. Those men know my face. Volkov is dead. His organization is scattered. He moved closer, his cologne mixing with the lingering scent of piano polish. You could leave tomorrow, resume your life. My hands trembled against the keys. Could I? No. The word was soft, almost apologetic. Not entirely. You know too much now. You've seen too much. But I could relocate you. New city, new identity. Enough money to start over. And never see Juliana again. His silence was answer enough. I played a chord, minor and melancholy. She's the best student I've ever had. Watching her grow, seeing her discover music's power, that's not something you just walk away from. Even if staying means living like this, guards at every door, checking the shadows, knowing what I am. I met his eyes finally. Those gray depths that had terrified me now held something else, something almost vulnerable. I know what you are, Marco. I've known since the first lesson, but I also know you'd die for your daughter. I've seen you listen to her play with tears in your eyes. I've watched you carry her to bed and whisper bedtime stories in Italian. I stood, facing him fully. You're a monster to your enemies, but you're a father to her. That's the man I choose to see. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing my healed lip, the scar his world had given me. You're either very wise or very foolish, Lily Chen. Can't I be both? His laugh was unexpected, genuine. Then his lips were on mine. And I was falling into something dangerous and inevitable. This wasn't salvation, it wasn't escape, but it was real, raw and complicated and terrifyingly honest. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. My world is violence and shadows, and it will always find us. I'm not asking for promises. I gripped his shirt, anchoring myself to this moment. I'm asking for truth. Can you give me that? Always. 6 months later, I stood in the music room, listening to Juliana perform for a small audience. Marco's inner circle, the men who'd saved us that day, sat in chairs arranged like a concert hall. Bianca dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Juliana's fingers danced across the keys, Rachmaninoff's prelude in C-sharp minor filling the space with its haunting beauty. She was ready for conservatory auditions, ready for the world beyond these walls. But the world wasn't ready for her. Not yet. Not safely. Marco's hand found mine in the darkness. His thumb traced circles on my palm, a private conversation in a room full of people. When Juliana finished, the applause was thunderous. She curtsied, beaming, her eyes finding her father's first, then mine. In that moment, I saw our future, complicated and dangerous and shot through with unexpected grace. Later, after guests departed and Juliana slept, Marco led me to the window. The city sprawled below, full of people living ordinary lives. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "The before?" I thought of my studio apartment, the subway commute, the constant anxiety about money. I miss the simplicity, the illusion of control. And now? Now I understand that control is the real illusion. We're all just trying to survive, to protect what we love, to find meaning in the chaos. He kissed my temple. "You sound like a philosopher." "I'm a piano teacher who fell in love with a crime lord. Philosophy is mandatory." His arms wrapped around me from behind, and I leaned into his warmth. Beyond the window, sirens wailed, the eternal soundtrack of the city that never slept. Somewhere, Marco's enemies plotted. Somewhere, danger waited. But here, in this moment, we had music and love and the fierce determination to protect it all. "Lily?" Marco's voice was quiet against my ear. "Yes? Thank you." "For what?" "For staying. For seeing me. For loving my daughter like she's yours." I turned in his arms, meeting those gray eyes that once terrified me. "She is mine. You both are." And it was true. This strange, dangerous family, assembled from violence and necessity and unexpected tenderness, was mine. Not the life I'd planned, not the safety I'd craved, but mine. The piano in the corner gleamed in the lamplight, waiting for tomorrow's lesson, for Juliana's next breakthrough, for the notes that would carry us forward through whatever came next. I'd walked into Marco Marchesi's world to teach his daughter music. Instead, I learned that the most beautiful melodies come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the most dangerous choices lead to the only life worth living.